Again, thank you for bearing with us. We wanted to just give a few instructions while we wait for the rest of the participants to join. I am Jennifer Cipolletti, Director of Conservation Advocacy for American Bird Conservancy, and we are really excited to have this webinar today and really glad that all of you will be joining us. So a couple of instructions while folks continue to join. We are going to have everybody on mute because this webinar will be recorded. I know that everyone is busy and might have kids and pets in the house or get distracted by a bald eagle as it flies by. So we'll record this and we'll post it for later. So we'll have people muted to minimize any feedback or accidental disturbances. Only the presenters' videos and screens will be visible. Our three presenters today will be Mike Parr, the President of American Bird Conservancy, Steve Holmer, Vice President of Policy, and then I will present at the end as well. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat, which some people already have. Thank you very much for that. And we will be very happy to answer any questions at the end of the discussion. So I'll just give it another minute or so to wait for another couple of people to join, and then I will introduce our first speaker. So it is 2:02. I think we will get started. Again, everyone will be on mute. All videos will be unseeable except for our presenters. We will have this recorded for later. I did give a previous introduction a couple of minutes ago. So our three presenters, Mike Parr, President of American Bird Conservancy, Steve Holmer, Vice President of Policy, and then I will also present at the end. Any questions, please put them in the chat function and we will happy to answer them at the end of this. And again, we really appreciate everybody taking the time to join us today. We know that a lot of folks are cooped up at home, so it's a great way to spend some time talking about what we can do for birds. So with that, I would like to introduce Mike Parr, President of American Bird Conservancy, and he will provide an overview of ABC's work during these challenging times. Then he'll turn it over to Steve Holmer. Mike, go ahead.
Great, thank you, Jennifer, and thank you to everybody for joining us this afternoon. We're certainly facing some challenging times, and some of us are getting used to doing these Zoom calls. We found them at ABC to be quite effective, and it's nice to certainly be able to see people and hear from our colleagues, even though ABC's main offices are closed. And we're also keen to try and use this as an opportunity to reach out and really keep in touch with people that we work with and keep up to date, because you know, the business of bird conservation continues even under these challenging times. And so we wanted to use these webinars as an opportunity to really engage with people and keep the ball rolling forward for birds. So I'd just like to make a few quick introductory comments. Firstly, just to let you know, we're going to have a series of webinars. It's going to be same day every 2 weeks, tackling a number of different priority topics for birds. The next one after this is going to be looking at backyards and what you can do to help birds around your home and around your property during the current period. And I think that'll be both fun and entertaining and also useful from a conservation standpoint. So for those people who've been on this webinar, you'll get an update about that, but that'll be on April 23rd. We want to keep these webinars to about half an hour so that, you know, we know that you're busy and you've probably got other similar meetings to attend. So we're going to keep the main part of this meeting to about 30 minutes, and then there'll be questions after that, but you can hopefully get a quick one-stop shop of some really important items this way and not taking up too much of your day. I also want to thank everybody on the call who is an ABC supporter, and if you're not already supporting ABC, we'd love to invite you to do that, and you can do that through our website at www.abcbirds.org. Today's webinar rather, is going to be focused mainly on our policy issues and really three really urgent and important topics that we're focused on right now. ABC does a lot of work above and beyond this in different areas, including habitat conservation, preventing species extinctions, working internationally. But we really want to focus in on things that you could potentially do to help move the bird conservation agenda forward right now on some priority issues. And of course, while all this is going on, the wheels of government are still turning. There are still some environmental rollbacks that we're trying to fight right now. that will make a big difference for birds. And that's why we really want to mobilize and get all of us organized and working as a team to tackle those issues while, we're all stuck at home and trying to make the best of it. So I think those are probably the main introductory comments I'd like to make. But I do want to emphasize that we'd like to hear from you, both by chat now, and if you have suggestions or feedback or questions for us, either now or following this. We really want to stay connected. Bird conservation is about one big team, and we regard ourselves as part of that team. We want to work with people to get birds protected the best we can. So I'm going to turn it over now to Steve, who's going to start tackling some of the top issues in the policy realm and the work we're doing in advocacy that you can engage with. And I'll be around to take any questions. So thanks again for joining. We appreciate your support and hope to work with you to do our best to save birds. Thanks, and over to you, Steve.
Great, thanks, Mike. So the main topics that I plan to cover today, well, I seem to have just suddenly stopped motion. There we go. Has to do with migratory birds. And we have some really important developments going on with migratory bird regulation and legislation. And then I'm going to hand it over to Jennifer Cipolletti, who's going to talk about some recent successes that we've had with bird conservation funding and reducing bird collisions with buildings. And then also talk about how you and your partner organizations can get more involved with bird conservation. So the backdrop of our discussion about migratory birds is, of course, the major paper that came out last fall showing that there's been a significant decline of migratory birds over the last 50 years. And we know this as a result of citizen science and people doing the various bird counts, as well as more recent radar data that can actually measure the flocks as they're migrating. And when we break this down, we find that there are key areas and habitats of particular concern, such as grasslands and boreal forests, western forests. I'm very concerned that habitat generalists are also not doing well, but it does show that wetland habitat and birds that rely on them are doing better as a result of focused conservation. And of course, we have our migratory birds, a 30% decline in 50 years, grassland birds with a 50% decline, and aerial insectivores as a key area of concern. And so we were particularly surprised when we saw the administration reverse protections for migratory birds at a time when it's pretty evident that we need to be increasing these protections. Of course, we saw a legal opinion that ended the existing enforcement against incidental take. And this is the foreseeable but preventable killing of birds from industrial sources. And a coalition of conservation groups, including American Bird Conservancy, is challenging that administration policy, and that case is moving towards arguments now. And we've also now just seen a proposed regulation to reaffirm this harmful policy change. The comment period just ended on this. Over 200,000 comments were generated by the coalition in opposition to the rule. And in addition, we saw letters in the House and Senate asking that the rule be withdrawn. And so another key area that we've been working on is a proactive solution. One piece of legislation called the Migratory Bird Protection Act. And this was introduced by Representative Alan Lowenthal. It's HR 5552. And what it does is it reaffirms the protections against incidental take. But it also goes further, and it establishes an incidental take permitting authority for the Fish and Wildlife Service. The bill is off to a great start. It has already passed the House Natural Resources Committee and is now awaiting a vote on the House floor. And one of the reasons that we believe that it's time to move towards this incidental take permitting is all the progress that we've seen about implementing best management practices that can reduce the mortality for birds. Things are like putting screens over oil pits at oil and gas drilling operations. This can prevent birds from mistaking them for lakes and getting trapped. We're seeing the lighting changes on communications tower taking place rather quickly now, where the steady red burning lights that attract birds are being turned off. This can reduce bird mortality by as much as 70%. And also save power. And then of course we have some really important guidelines for reducing power line and wind energy impacts. And so the goal would be to take all of this existing material and turn it into a new rule-making regulations that would be applied to everybody, so there would be a level playing field. And going back to the Migratory Bird Protection Act, we're really at a critical phase for the bill. It's really essential that we try to give this a big push right now. It's a bipartisan bill. We have 61 co-sponsors in the House, including a lot of really key House committee chairs and leaders. And we have a commitment that this bill is going to be moving forward. And so we're hoping to see a floor vote. We will be getting an action alert out again in support of the bill to build the co-sponsor list and be prepared for this floor vote. And at the same time, we're trying to build support in the Senate. Senator Van Hollen has expressed interest in leading a similar bill in the Senate. And right now he's looking for a Republican to team up with and make that a reality. So we're going to be doing everything we can to reach out to House and Senate leaders to move forward for migratory bird protection. So I will now hand it over to Jennifer Cipolletti to talk more about how you can be involved.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Steve. So if everyone can just bear with me while we switch over, and I will share my screen. Is everybody seeing my presentation?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep, we can see it. That's great.
Fantastic. Okay, so I'm going to take off my camera and I will begin. All right, so hello everyone. Again, Jennifer Cipolletti, Director of Conservation Advocacy for American Bird Conservancy. Just want to thank you all for taking the time to join us today, and we are really looking forward to this continued discussion. Go back. So we've already talked about what we're going to do. We are planning to advocate for birds from home. We are continuing to do it. It's incredibly important, and we are incredibly grateful that Mike has joined us today to let you all know how we're going to do that. And so I'll talk just a little bit more about what we plan to do while we are all adjusting to our current situation. And we know that these are difficult times, and we just really thought we wanted to share with all of you some of what we've been doing while working from home. And most of the ABC staff is working remotely. And while transitioning has been an incredibly unique experience, we do know that birds still need our help. And so today I'll just talk briefly about appropriations efforts, including some of our successes and ongoing advocacy. And I'll cover a little bit of our glass collisions program and efforts that have been ongoing, including New York City and federal legislation, and also how you can keep birds from hitting windows while you're at home. And then last, I will mention other ways to get involved with ABC and join our advocacy efforts to help birds during these difficult times. So last year, Congress reversed a decades-old trend of budget cuts with about a $10 million increase for key conservation programs. This was a really incredible win. We're very excited about it. These were a part of our big push in 2019 for the FY2020 appropriations cycle. And this really could not have been done without a coordinated outreach effort. A large coalition of more than 150 or so conservation groups, including American Bird Conservancy, Cornell Lab of Ornithology, Defenders of Wildlife, and National Audubon Society, and many others, asked for increases to these different programs that we have listed here. And essentially, these outreach efforts provided us the ability to garner these $10 million in increased appropriations, which was incredibly fantastic. So for some reason, pardon me, there we go. Okay, so the first one was, there we go. Having technical difficulties over here. Sometimes my mouse pad freezes. So the first one, we did receive a $1.5 million increase for migratory bird joint ventures. And even though many of us are at home adjusting to remote work, we know that it's incredibly important to keep the work that we're doing on Capitol Hill. Even though we can't go in person to meet them, we know that we can still have our meetings online. We're still corresponding via email, and Migratory Bird Joint Ventures really was a great success story out of that FY2020 appropriation cycle. In addition to that, we also were able to receive a $1 million increase for the Migratory Birds of the Americas Conservation Act. So it's now at $4.9 million, which is a $1 million increase. Without funding, these essential programs cannot continue in their current capacity to protect birds and their habitat. So it's something that we're continuing to work on, even though we're from home. And we couldn't have done it without all of you folks who have joined us on the phone. So coordinated efforts of individuals and partners and members of the Bird Conservation Alliance. So we're incredibly excited about this. So your voices really make this progress possible. And again, your people's involvement has led to a $10 million increase in funding for the FY2020 budget. And looking forward to FY2021, we currently have about 175 groups who are endorsing the funding package. And this effort will continue through this year. And we need your help to ask Congress to support increased funding for conservation programs that benefit threatened wildlife and public lands. You can help us advocate by signing the action alert to request increased funding for the FY2021 appropriations request and spread the word asking for support. And this can all be done from the comfort of your home. So we're all working together to figure out ways to continue to do the good work we need for birds while we do work remotely. So let's talk a little bit about glass collisions. We talked about some really great things happening with appropriations and ongoing actions that we're taking. So as Steve and Mike mentioned previously, the recent study that was published in Science reported that the US and Canadian breeding bird population dropped by more than a quarter since 1970. And glass collisions are one major cause of that loss, killing up to 1 billion birds in the US each year. And even though these statistics are just slightly dated, according to New York City's Audubon's Project Safe Flight, about 90,000 to 230,000 birds die each year during their migrations through New York City alone, just one city. And that could be quite an underestimate as well. And so members of our staff, our collisions program director, Dr. Chris Shepard, and many others have been working steadfast to try to get collisions language included and passed in New York. And we had a fantastic success in New York. New York City passed the country's most wide-ranging bird-friendly building legislation. It's a huge win. January 12th, it's also known as Initiative 1482B, did become law, giving New York City's building department a year to develop guidelines before enforcement starts. And obviously with the ongoing situation, many things could be postponed or delayed just until things get back to business as normal. But again, as it stands, they've got about a year to comply. And the new policy does require that new building materials meet bird-friendly standards that greatly reduce collisions risk to birds. And the policy also covers major renovations that include modifying existing glass and applies to construction across the city's 5 boroughs. This is the most prescriptive glass collisions legislation that we've got so far. And our hope is that this legislation will be an example to the rest of the country and to the federal government. And we mentioned federal legislation. So we already talked about that as many as 1 billion birds die a year in collisions with buildings in North America alone. And that's just an estimate. So one way at the federal level that we are advocating for is the Bird Safe Buildings Act, which is HR 919. So Representatives Mike Quigley from Illinois and Representative Morgan Griffith from Virginia have introduced this bill, and we are currently waiting markup. So we know that it has been postponed, and again, due to the current circumstances, we are still waiting to hear more on that, but we are hopeful it will get marked up and we can continue moving this bill forward. It is bipartisan, has tremendous support, hoping it will be introduced in the Senate soon. And again, the bill is designed to reduce bird mortality by calling for federal buildings to incorporate bird-safe building materials, design features, and lighting. And we could talk all day about this bill, but really hoping that perhaps this New York City legislation will be a catalyst to move the federal bill forward. So we'll continue to advocate on behalf of this bill to members of Congress. And ways that you all can help us do that is by taking action. So you can sign our action alert. It will help the Bird Safe Buildings Act will help reduce bird collisions by requiring public buildings to incorporate bird-friendly building design and materials, which can also save energy. So that's a really good thing to note when you're, inquiring about this action alert. And individuals and groups can take action by asking members of Congress to co-sponsor and support this bill by signing that action alert. It's spring migration now, and there are many ways that you can help birds. And you can check out this link on our website, how to make your windows bird friendly, and things that you can do while you are at home. So other ways that you can be involved, I know that we're all at home figuring out how to work with other people in the house and trying to balance personal space with keeping occupied. And so we put together just a few suggestions on how you can help advocating for birds from home. One way is you can become a member of the Bird Conservation Alliance. So groups and organizations can join and advocate on behalf of stronger bird conservation. This will sign you up for our mailing list and newsletter. You can help us advocate for birds with your members of Congress by signing these action alerts. The Bird Conservation Alliance also hosts lobby fly-in days, meetings, legislative briefings, and events like our March 25th Hill event, which we did have to postpone, but we're very excited for when we do get to have that event happen again. And very importantly, to take action on these important issues. We have a lot of things still going on, even though we're working from home, and we want to continue to keep that really positive forward momentum. And we can't do it without members and supporters like you. And when you sign up for the e-newsletter, you can also join the action alert list and get firsthand knowledge of what we are sending up to Congress and asking for their support. And then also you can help make your home and windows bird friendly by checking out our website for more ideas. And so here are just a couple of the links. And again, as needed, we can share these more broadly or put them in the chat function. But when you become a member of the Bird Conservation Alliance, you join our partnership of about 220 member organizations. And so these are the groups that are involved in things like the Hill event and the lobby days. And I'm pretty sure we actually have some of the folks on the webinar today who have joined Steve and I on the Hill, on some of our Hill events, lobbying on behalf of stronger conservation. And we've got a network of about 7,000 activists and 500 additional organizations, 5,000 state and federal government officials. And when you take action on these issues, these are, when constituents contact their members of Congress, that's what we hear about first when we walk into those offices or we pick up the phone and we talk to members and ask them what they've heard about. It's you that are taking action. So with that, I think I will wrap up and just say thank you again. If you have any other additional questions, you can hop on our website, abcbirds.org. All kinds of great information about keeping your birds friendly during this time. And then more info on the BCA is on there as well. So with that, I think we will go back to the chat. Steve, did you want to have me stop sharing my screen so that you can share yours? Or do you want to just leave it on this so we've got the website?
Yeah, why don't you leave it right there? That's fine. And we do have a couple questions have come in. So if you have any questions for us, please type that into the chat. The one we have here is, have you seen trickle-down effects to state enforcement for migratory birds as a result of the administration's reinterpretation of the Migratory Bird Treaty Act? Well, a number of states have been picking up the slack. The state of California has tried to reaffirm protection for migratory birds, and most recently the state of Virginia has issued a draft guidance, a rulemaking that is now open for public comment that would reaffirm for protections for migratory birds. So it is very important that when the federal government is not fulfilling its responsibilities, that the states step in and take care of birds to the extent that they can.
Steve, let me ask you something, if I may. Can you just confirm for people who are dialed in that we will follow up with an email giving them specifics on the things that we've brought up, the Migratory Bird Protection Act, how they can weigh in on that, on the 2021 budget for birds, on the Bird Safe Building Act, and also on the Virginia regulation, because that's a public comment period that's open. Those 4 items, we can get that out to people because it's a little bit difficult to keep up with all of the links online since they're moving past.
Understood. Yeah, that's a great suggestion. We will do that. We'll put all these links together into one note and send that out to everybody who's registered. And then there is going to be a recording of this webinar, and so all that will be available for the promotion of that as well.
Great. There's also another question for you